Morning, or actually, it is 12:19, which makes it afternoon. I guess I have been dragging in putting this video together. But in any case, good afternoon and welcome to the Thursday, March the 30th session of the OBX Wave Report, where we are going to discuss a lot of stuff about the waves, the weather, the climate, some cool gear you can use to repel sharks, and we're going to talk a little bit about the sharks on the other banks, and we're going to talk a little bit more about the the plague of violence that is sweeping across our nation. Um, we don't want to ignore that. We want to be a part of the solution, not a part of the problem, and we're not going to be a part of the GOP party of no can do unless it hurts you propaganda. But we're going to start out on a lighter note today. And a fun note and a freaking awesome note. Um, got into the water at Jeanette's Pier this morning. There were beautiful 2 to 3 foot glassy waves rolling in. There was not another surfer there, so I had the entire break there at Jeanette's Pier to myself, where I caught some good rides. And here's one of them, just carving down the glassy blue-green face of what looks like a 2.5, maybe a 3 footer, um, with the sunlight streaming down across the back of the wave, creating that beautiful crystalline note to the wave structure as the wave itself breaks and peels off there to the right. And I, you know, get into a nice little stance and get ready to do a turn down the face and all the fun stuff. But what a fantastic day this morning. My only regret is that I did not have um, surf friends to share it with. Um, and it's just not as fun being out there alone. It's I mean, a lot of surfers are pretty solitary. They're kind of, yeah, it's like about like the individual nature of the sport, but there's just something about seeing the joy light up in someone else when they, get a good ride, and share in that connection with nature, and feel that connection and kind of a shared joy together. So, um, but I got it all to myself today, so it was all just me. It was the me show out there at Jeanette's Beer, and it was a lot of fun. And only one other thing could have made it more fun, but in any case, just fun, fantastic, beautiful waves there. All right, so let's get a little bit into the preamble discussion for this OBX wave report. And I did want to talk about the NRA and the gun violence that is sweeping the nation. And the two are not unrelated. Um, the main driver of the violence, or the main, there's actually, I believe there are two drivers to the violence, but the underlying driver is the fact that the NRA has aligned with the GOP to make assault rifles very widespread, very easy to access, and has worked to remove pretty much any accountability on the part of gun owners or any kind of monitoring for risk for people who own firearms. Um, there's no requirements. The GOP doesn't believe in any kind of requirements for training. They don't believe in any kind of background type checks. Um, they don't believe in red flags, and they do everything they can to expand the range of the population that can have access to these terrible weapons of war that produce horrible wounds. It's getting hit with an AR-15 is like getting hit with a battle axe. I mean, it it's not clean. It's messy. I don't want to get into it all, but I served in the military. I've seen what these kinds of weapons can do. But so the driver of the violence is a total lack of accountability driven by the GOP in association with gun lobbying groups like the NRA. And then on top of it, you've got all of this very incendiary rhetoric coming from the right-wing media outlets, right-wing platformed by right-wing extremism platformed by billionaires on social media that continuously inject these incendiary, hateful, often bigoted messages into the populace. And in that combination, if you got widespread guns and widespread agitation, you're going to get violence. And there is a culprit here. In fact, there are two. It is the GOP and the NRA. I mean, certainly any individual action is on the individual, and any crime is on the individual. But the reason why we have a problem across the country is because of that combined mass spreading of weapons of war, lack of accountability, lack of regulation. And then on top of it, the intentional spreading of agitation in the form of incendiary, hateful rhetoric, which sows the field of the United States with violence. So, yep, little preamble discussion here for the OBX wave report. And we're not going to put up with the nonsense. So I did want to talk about the sharks again. So lots of sharks in the news, lots of fear mongering about sharks. There's a number of great whites now off of the Outer Banks. There's just quite a few of them. They're heading north. They're on their migratory path. They do this every year. They follow the fish. They follow them north in the springtime and south in the fall. And they winter in Florida and they summer in the U.S. Northeast and Canada. And so right now, the great white sharks are swimming on across the waters of the Outer Banks. These beautiful, majestic ocean predators that help to keep the ocean so healthy. One of the ones that has gotten a lot of attention is Britain, who is a 13-foot long, 3-inch shark, about 1,437 pounds. And he's right now about off of Avon, swimming around out there, at least the last ping from his radiosonde device. And we've got Martha, who's a female white shark, 7-foot long. Jekyll, who's an 8-foot long white shark. We've got a tiger shark over here, Crystal, near the Pamlico Sound. Actually, I don't know if this is, yeah, this, is it updated? I'm gonna refresh it just to make sure. It'll give me this little ad, but I just wanted to make sure it's refreshed because those locations looked very similar to yesterday's locations. But I don't know. It might just be that that was the last time they were pinged. Um, yeah, they could be. So here, yeah, here's Britain. And we got Simon, a white shark off of looks like Pea Island. And then up here in the Currituck Sound, there's a tiger shark by the name of Weimar. And then further offshore, we've got some smaller white sharks, 4-foot, 8-inch female white shark, and Ferg, a male white shark who's nearly 12 feet long, big guy, well offshore, looks like about 40 or 50 miles offshore. But it's worth noting that as far as the great whites go, they tend to stay offshore. The closest in here looks like maybe about 10, 12 miles. And then the tiger sharks do like to get in a little closer. And I don't see any bull sharks here, but bull sharks will also tend to get in closer. The sounds tend to be grounds where various sharks go to have their young. So in the calmer waters of the sound. So I went out with a Sharkbanz. It's like this band that you can wear around your wrist or your ankle. I put it on my ankle. A buddy of mine loaned it to me, and you know, it's good to have the extra protection. I've never had an issue with a shark in the sense of like a shark getting after me or anything like that. I've seen them. I've seen them in the water, but 44 years, never had a problem with a shark. But I guess it's always good to have a little extra, right? Okay, so sharks in the news, so we're going to talk about sharks. Let's get down to the weather. Talk about the weather across the United States and in the Outer Banks. Right now, it's just beautiful, clear blue skies. Temperatures in the lower 50s across most of the Outer Banks. We've got some northerly and northwesterly winds coming in on the front side of a high pressure system. It is worth noting that this high is circulating around, it's digging up this Gulf moisture and it's feeding it into the next storm system. This next storm system could be a bit of a doozy, particularly for the central United States. If you're in Louisiana or Iowa, um, you're under the gun, particularly in eastern Iowa and just parts of north central Louisiana. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the severe weather that's coming up in the meso models later, but and then going to the enhanced cloud tops map, you can see that moisture coming in. It's interesting. So you got the moisture flow coming in at the surface from the Gulf of Mexico, but then you've got also this more synoptic moisture pattern. My cat wants to walk all over my computer. Excuse me. It's okay, Crow. It's okay, buddy. All right. So yeah, so you can see also some synoptic resonance moving in here across Mexico with a moisture flow coming in off the Pacific. So there's a lot of moisture feeding into the potential severe weather for tomorrow, both over the Gulf of Mexico and then coming in from the Pacific. And then again offshore, you can see the swirling clouds off of the US West Coast, and then off the East Coast, some front and still a storm lingering around the Nova Scotia area. Okay, getting down to the National Weather Service radar map and the alerts. I did want to show you the alerts for the central US. So we ahead of the front and ahead of this storm system, we've got strong southerly winds and southwesterly winds. And drought has plagued large portions of Texas, New Mexico, Oklahoma, Kansas, and Colorado. And now we've got red flag warnings up. Those are the indicators in the pink. That means an enhanced risk of fire. So we have had some pretty severe drought in this region, and with those strong southwesterly winds coming in, the fire potentials are amping up. So if you're in those regions, please pay attention to your local emergency management. And I just did want to focus in on, one of the counties here, Union County, New Mexico, where they're experiencing high wind warnings and red flag warnings. So risk of fire for the central US today. All right, so let's get down into the wave report for the Outer Banks. And what I will say is that the waves are about 2 to 3 feet, and they are about 2 to 3 feet pretty much everywhere. So starting off at Jeanette's Pier, we've got waves in the range of 2 to 3 feet. We've got a primary swell coming in out of the northeast at 7 seconds. That is a 3-foot swell. Secondary swell coming in out of the east northeast at 13 seconds. That's a 0.9-foot swell. Winds are coming out of the northeast now. When I was down there earlier, they were coming out of the northwest, but winds now out of the northeast strong, 26 miles per hour. That is an onshore flow. I'm sorry, that is out of the northeast, but it's still an onshore flow. So with that northeast facing beach, and we got winds out of the northeast, so that is an onshore flow. Earlier today, they were more like northwest or west northwest, so they've swung around. I was lucky enough to get those west northwest winds and some glassy waves as a result. Heading south to Rodanth, we're going to go ahead and pass S-turns where the waves are also 2 to 3 feet. And we find that at Rodanth, waves are in the range of 2 to 3 feet. We're going to sound a little bit like a broken record today because the waves are 2 to 3 feet pretty much everywhere. Up at Bathhouse, for example, waves are 2 to 3 feet. So at Rodanth, waves 2 to 3 feet. Primary swell also coming in at 7 seconds. Secondary swell at 13 seconds. Primary swell is 3 feet. Secondary swell is 0.9 feet. Primary swell coming in and out of the northeast, secondary swell coming in and out of the east northeast. What I did not do was tell you guys what the water temperatures and air temperatures were at Jeanette's Pier. So we're just going to go back to Jeanette's Pier for a second. Right now, Jeanette's Pier is experiencing air temperatures in the range of 51 degrees. I was fine in my wetsuit, in my 2.3 millimeter wetsuit, hood and booties. Ocean water temperature is 53, holding at 53. We have had some cooler weather, and so overall the warm up in the waters has slowed down. Um, and at a couple of beaches, we've had water temperatures drop down by a tick or two. But overall, Jeanette's Pier is still 53 degrees, and the weather forecast for Jeanette's Pier is sunny, breezy, and high in the low 50s. Okay, back to Rodanth. My apologies for that little hiccup there. Winds right now at Rodanth coming in out of the north-northwest at 24 miles per hour. That is a strong cross-shore flow. Air temperatures at Rodanth also 51 degrees Fahrenheit. Ocean water temperatures at 56. That is pretty warm, getting close to the 60-degree mark there. Sounds pretty warm to me after all of the cold water over the course of the winter. Of course, 56 degrees is not anywhere in any way warm, and I'd probably still wear my full suit booties and gloves in those conditions, and hoodie. Okay. Weather conditions for Rodanth are sunny, breezy, low to middle 50s today, and just generally pretty nice weather if a little cool. And then heading on south to Avon, we've got 2 to 3 foot waves there as well. So 2 to 3 foot everywhere, as I said before. And then at Buxton, also 2 to 3 foot waves with a primary swell coming in out of the east northeast at 7 seconds. That is a 2.5 foot swell at Buxton. Secondary swell coming in at 1 foot at 13 seconds, also out of the east northeast. Winds are out of the north northwest at 23 miles per hour. Air temperatures 55 degrees Fahrenheit, a bit warmer down there in Buxton as we would expect. And then ocean water temperatures at 63 degrees Fahrenheit. So yesterday it was 64 at Buxton, so just a tick cooler. Not yet a trend of counter seasonal cooling. I think in general we'll probably see another warm up as we get into next week, but we shall see, right? Right, Crow? We shall see. Okay. Weather conditions for Buxton expected to be sunny, breezy, and low to middle 50s for the high. All right, so heading west, turning west on Route 12, we're going to go ahead and just talk briefly about Billy Mitchell Airport, where we break the trend with 2-foot waves near the Billy Mitchell Airport and the Frisco campground. Okay, so mostly though 2 to 3 foot waves across the Outer Banks. Now getting into the climate discussion, I did want to show you the global anomalies map for today, which is March 30th, provided by Karstein Houston. I hope I am pronouncing this correctly, but right now the global hotspot is the Antarctic. So in Antarctica right now, global temperatures are running about 1.01 degrees Celsius above the running 5-day mean for 1981 to 2010. And then in the Arctic, it's about 0.47 degrees Celsius above normal. I'm sorry, for the Arctic, it's about 0.57, maybe rounding up to 0.58 degrees Celsius above normal. And for the globe, it's about 0.47 degrees Celsius above normal. This above normal reading is continuous. I will note that these warmer than normal temperatures are driven by fossil fuel burning, so we need to get to net zero and then net negative carbon emissions as soon as possible. It is worth noting that the usual suspects, climate change deniers, anti-clean energy folk who don't want to solve problems, just want to let problems get worse and worse and worse, are right now attacking the transition to clean energy by attacking the notion of net zero carbon emissions. They're producing all kinds of silly, ridiculous nonsense about how it's some kind of Trojan horse for I don't know what, but the only thing net zero carbon emissions are a Trojan horse for is a better life, a future that we save, um, less pollution and less deaths by pollution. That's the only thing that it's a Trojan horse for. Oh, and good jobs because you're going to need to have the manufacturing jobs to support the clean energy revolution. So if you don't like those things, then I can't help you. But in any case, yeah, global temperatures warmer than normal as expected. Find me a day where they're cooler than normal, and I don't know, I'll buy you a beer or something. But it won't happen very often if it happens at all. But in any case, let's get down to the lower 48 where I'm looking at the quantitative prediction forecast for the next 7 days, and it does indicate a lot of storminess here for the Mississippi River Valley region. So looks like storms are about to start firing up, possible multiple storm systems running through this region here. We're going to have to keep an eye on it. And then for the US West Coast, we've got a series of storms moving into the Pacific Northwest. Looks like California is predicted to get a bit of a drying off period, a bit of a respite from the storms as the storm tracks start to shift more to the north. This might be a part of the seasonal shift, but it is worth noting that this year California did receive severe record precipitation. Let's hope that California does not swing hard back to drought. And it also is worth noting that the drought did not completely or entirely end for California, despite the record precipitation. But yeah, let's hope that we don't get a hard swing to drought come summer, because with all that precipitation, you'll tend to get the vegetative growth. And then if it swings hard to drought, we're going to have bad fire weather, but let's just hope that that does not happen. It's worth noting that the hard swings between drought and precipitation are a feature of climate change for California and for other parts of the world. It's just California tends to be a hot spot for it. Also worth noting that the upper elevations of the Rockies are also looking at some enhanced potential storminess. Okay, so let's get into the um, Climate Prediction Center's weather maps. I did want to show you where the drought conditions are. Right now, we've got drought conditions over the central U.S. running up from Texas through Oklahoma and parts of Kansas and Nebraska. These conditions are joining up with some strong winds to create some fire weather hazards today. So for those of you out there, please pay attention to your local emergency management and weather folk and be alert to any potential fires that might crop up. Looking at the 1 month outlook, we do see a likelihood of, hold on one sec, sorry about that, of above average temperatures for most of the eastern United States, likelihood of below average temperatures for parts of the west, likelihood of above normal precipitation for the Gulf Coast region of Texas and Louisiana, and for above normal precipitation for parts of the Great Lakes region. And I did want to show you the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook, because for the US Southeast, it looks like the temperatures are expected to be well above normal over the next 6 to 10 days, with well above normal precipitation for most of the US as well. So it looks like for here in the Outer Banks, we're going to see a big warm up. And then looking at the tropical hazards map, we've got potential for cyclonic formation in the northwest of Australia. I'm just looking at this map, getting ready for the Atlantic hurricane season. We're going to get more into the Atlantic as the Atlantic hurricane season starts to ramp up. Okay, so now I did mention this at the start of the post. We are under the gun for serious severe weather and severe thunderstorms and I got this wrong, so I'm gonna have to make a correction for regions ranging from northern Louisiana through Iowa and southern Wisconsin. And the two hot spots for potential severe weather for Friday, this is the Friday map, are parts of Arkansas, Missouri, Tennessee, and Kentucky, where there's a moderate chance of severe thunderstorms. Now, moderate chance is actually pretty heightened risk, so don't let the moderate in this prediction fool you, because moderate is looking at the potential for the most severe kinds of storms. And then for eastern Iowa, moderate, and northwestern Illinois, moderate risk of severe weather. This could include tornadoes, extremely strong straight line wind events, hail, and severe lightning. So for those of you guys in this region, please pay attention to your local emergency management, local severe weather. Things could get a little gnarly out there. Please stay safe, everyone. Okay, I did also want to show you that for today, we've got some chance of thunderstorms just generally ranging from Texas all the way up to the Great Lakes region. And then for Saturday, we do have a chance of thunderstorms ranging from the Gulf Coast all the way up to the US Northeast. But Thursday and Saturday, not looking too bad. Crow, we don't walk on the keyboard. He really wants to walk on my keyboard while I'm doing this wave report. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, but please, guys, please stay safe out there on Friday. Friday is the focal point for the potential severe weather. So the main actor for the severe weather is this storm that is forming now over the Rockies. It's getting this synoptic moisture flow coming in from the Pacific. It's getting some moisture flow coming in from the Gulf of Mexico, and it's about to get its act together. So I'm going to go ahead and advance this model so you can see the storm move. Later today, tapping into more of that Gulf moisture and Pacific moisture. And then as we get early into the day on Friday, we start to see the storms fire up from Texas through Iowa and Minnesota. And then later in the day, we start to see the thunderstorms form up. So late in the day, possibly into the night, we get thunderstorms forming up in Iowa and parts of Missouri, Kentucky, and Tennessee, according to the weather models. You know what? I think I want to go to a mesoscale model. Let's go to yeah, there we go. Let's back this up. You know what? Let's go to a more detailed mesoscale. I'm sorry, more detailed mesoscale. There we go. Maybe that's too detailed. Okay, let's go back to the 12 kilometer. All right, these mesoscale models are more focused on thunderstorms. So let's back this up. And I do want to show you the severe weather potential. So um, midnight, midnight tonight. According to the mesoscale model, we get a cluster of thunderstorms running through parts of Arkansas. And just let's watch these storms go. So moving in through Arkansas and Missouri, and then we start to see thunderstorms fire up over eastern Iowa, parts of Wisconsin. This is the first batch moving into Illinois. And then as the storm moves in, we get a second line of thunderstorms that starts to develop over central Iowa. This one looks a little gnarly, right at the center of this 985 millibar low pressure system, forming up at about 20. So in the afternoon, evening time, late afternoon, evening time on Friday, and then sweeping off toward the east across most of the eastern half of Iowa, stringing into a rather powerful band of thunderstorms, and then by early morning Saturday, heading across Illinois. So the main time for severe weather looks like it's going to be late in the day on Friday, starting like early Friday evening, and then heading on through about midnight for Iowa. So that's the time of risk according to this mesoscale model. I don't see severe storms firing in this region here, at least in this model, but according to the National Weather Service, that is a risk as well. All right, so let's get down to the wave monitors and the wave forecast. Um, and so looking at the wave monitors right now, we've got swells in the range of about 5 to 5.5 feet in the near offshore environment. The swell is oriented toward the northeast. And then tomorrow, the waves will calm down a little bit, but I think the waves will still probably be nice tomorrow morning as the swell orients more toward the east. So swell coming in from the east, heading toward the west, and this swell in the range of 3 to 3.5 foot. Hopefully it'll not line up nicely and we'll get some good waves on shore. And then as we head into the day on Saturday, we're going to get some strong southwest winds. I do want to look at the winds here for just a second. Yeah, get near gale force winds over large portions of the Outer Banks coming in from the southwest. Getting back to the ocean, though, we expect to see some rather large waves also coming from the south. So this swell will have to wrap around. We're not going to see 7 to 9 foot waves on the coast, except for maybe in the south-facing beaches. But we likely will see 1 to 2, 1 to 2 to 3, maybe 2 to 4 foot waves as we get further south. So just depends on how the swells line up on Saturday. I still think it might be actually a pretty decent day on Saturday, depending on where you are. For example, like Buxton might be a really good place, or Hatteras. Once you get that, you get the sheltered beaches with a wraparound, and the southwest winds, you might get some good hollow waves there. And then into the day on Sunday, the waves get a bit smaller and orient back toward the north behind that big old front moving through that powerful storm system that's expected to produce those thunderstorms for parts of the central US. And so with wave heights in the range of looks like 5 to 6 feet, maybe 6 foot in the near offshore environment. And then as we get into Monday, the swell orients back to the east with wave heights in the range of looks like 2 to 3 feet. We might get a 3 foot swell out there if we're lucky. But with the orientation towards shore, those waves might be pretty decent depending on your location. All right, so thank you for joining me for this session of the OBX Wave Report. It's Thursday, so we're going to do our climate science chat. I did want to throw in that bit about the NRA and the GOP colluding to leave Americans vulnerable to gun violence. And as I talk about that, is also worth noting that the GOP and the fossil fuel industry has also had an unhealthy relationship for the United States as they continue to try and block climate action. Climate action being something that I'm going to ask you guys to help promote and accelerate. Climate action mainly comes from the rapid deployment of clean energy. And right now, the clean energy sources that are capable of rapid deployment are wind, water, solar, and electric vehicles. And if we do rapidly deploy those technologies, we'll be able to defend the beautiful coastlines here on the Outer Banks and around the world from the impacts of rising sea levels, from ocean acidification, which basically eats up the coral reefs, as well as the ocean heating, which eats up the coral reefs, and also from the more severe storms that are spawned out of a heated climate, a climate heated by the harmful process that is fossil fuel burning. All right, so thank you guys so much.